I'm Tom Serb, Director of the Midwest Music Academy. In today's video, we'll look at how the shape of our notes evolved over time to indicate the rhythm. From the 6th through 12th centuries, virtually all of the music we know of was religious in nature. While there must have been secular music as well, the only literate people were clergy, and they wrote down the music they used, and they considered music outside of church settings to be unimportant. Music in a religious setting is used to heighten the mystical experience. Almost all faiths seem to do this, from the chanting Om of Buddhist monks, to the Islamic Adhan, or call to prayer, to Jewish cantors or Christian monks chanting their prayers. I'll link to several examples of these meditative chants in the comments below. Rhythm isn't important to chant at all. We say that the music is unmetered because there is no sense of beat. And because the music was monophonic with only a single melody, all of the singers would simply follow the lead of one member of the group, just as a group of people can sing Happy Birthday without counting the rhythm. When fixed organum began, rhythm still wasn't an issue. Even though you had two voices singing at the same time, they were singing the same lyric and the same general melody. It's just like a group of people singing Happy Birthday. When they got fancier and both voices were taking different melodies, they were still singing the same words at the same time, so it wasn't a problem. Later on, they offset one voice in time. But you can do that without a sense of rhythm too. Just think of a group of people singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat as a round. Things became more complicated when they had two voices doing different melodies and offset in time. And then they added a third voice and a fourth. Suddenly rhythm was extremely important. Complex organum really got going with the composers Leonin and Periton at the Notre Dame Cathedral at the end of the 12th and beginning of the 13th century. At first it was enough to simply consider sounds as long or short. Short sounds were indicated with a square called the brevis, and long sounds added a tail and were called the longa. An additional note called the maxima was also used, often at the end of a piece. Since composers of the music we know about were clergy, they tended to place a lot of religious significance into the things they did. As music began to be metered or tied to a sense of beat, each note divided into three of the next shorter note representing the Trinity. A little later in the 12th century, we created the semibrevis, written as a square turned 45 degrees. Around this time, we also began experimenting with different kinds of meter. Instead of 3 divisions of a longer note, we tried 2. But this meant we needed an additional symbol to tell us how the notes were being divided. Since 3 represented the Trinity, and a circle has no beginning or end, a circle in the beginning of a piece of music indicated division of notes into thirds, called tempus perfectus. If the circle was broken, division was into halves, and it was called tempus imperfectum. Because the music was still based on chant, the notes were very long compared to today's music. During the 13th century, we created the minima by adding a stem to the semibrevis. This allowed us to divide divisions of longer notes. The symbols grew more complicated, using a dot inside the symbol to indicate a subdivision into 3, and no dot for a subdivision into 2. And finally, a vertical line was drawn through the figure if the beat was represented by a brevis instead of a longa, and it was called alla breve for according to the brevis. We still use 2 of these symbols today. The tempus imperfectus is sometimes used in place of a 4/4 time signature, and musicians often call it common time because it looks like the letter C. Tempus imperfectus alla breve is often used in place of a 2/2 time signature, and musicians tend to call this cut time. In the next video, we'll look at the many changes to written music that occurred during the Baroque era. Until then, I'm Tom Serb for Midwest Music Academy.